I am Mike Ellis. I'm the Deputy Premier, Minister of Public Safety and Emergency Services for the province of Alberta. Of course, I want to begin by acknowledging that we are gathered today on the traditional signatories of Treaty 6. Of course, acknowledge the Métis people of Alberta, of course, who share a deep connection to this land. And let me start by saying I need to be direct. The face of crime in Alberta is certainly changing. Despite the crime severity index numbers going down, crime is getting more violent, it's getting more organized, and quite frankly, it's getting more complex. Now, whether it's social disorder, drug activity in our downtowns, or property crime in rural Alberta, Albertans are tired of feeling like the deck seems to be stacked against them. They don't want excuses, and they certainly don't want governments that just react after the damage is already done. They want us to stay ahead of the criminals, and they want results. The commitments and promises are, quite frankly, simple. This government will do whatever it takes to put boots on the ground to keep communities safe. Today, we're taking another important step towards delivering on that promise. This afternoon, I'm going to be tabling Bill 15. This is the Public Safety Emergency Services Statute Amendment Act 2026, legislation that supports the continued development of the Alberta Sheriffs Police Service, or as some call it, the ASPS. Last year, we formally established the Crown Corporation for the ASPS to augment and support all police services in the province. And from the beginning, our goal has been to strengthen public safety and give municipalities more options to meet their policing needs. Bill 15 is the next step in that evolution of the ASPS and a foundational step in aligning people, expertise, and operations under the ASPS. For decades, our sheriffs have been the part of the landscape of community safety, doing everything from high-speed traffic enforcement to specialized surveillance. They're highly skilled, they're dedicated, and quite frankly, they've been doing the police-like functions and this work for a long time. It creates a very common sense line of sight transition for the sheriff peace officers to move into the police officer functions under the ASPS. If the bill is passed, the legislation would allow for the formal transition of the Alberta Sheriff's Branch into the ASPS, and it would also allow the sheriff peace officers and civilian staff to become ASPS employees without any disruption to public safety or day-to-day operations. So let me be very clear. This bill creates a practical path for the eligible sheriffs to pursue police officer roles within the ASPS, and this is a major milestone in building the new service. Bill 15 gives sheriffs the opportunity to pursue training to become ASPS police officers, subject to the required training, recruitment, and qualification standards. And others would continue in their current peace officer roles, ensuring full operational capacity is maintained throughout the transition. This approach allows the ASPS to recruit and train new police officers while maintaining uninterrupted public service. And it's about reducing unnecessary red tape and making better use of the experience that we all have. Of course, as I have stated before, money has been set aside for the Alberta Sheriffs, which will be transferred into the Crown Corporation. When it comes to training, rather than asking hundreds of skilled sheriffs to reapply or to start from scratch, this legislation would provide a stable and common sense pathway into the new police service. The reality is that many sheriffs are already performing police-like duties every single day, supporting communities right across the province, and they bring extensive frontline experience and proven leadership that Albertans already rely on. This legislation would allow the ASPS to benefit from the experience immediately without gaps or delays or disruption in public safety. The sheriffs are going to continue to serve their communities, enforce the law, and support public safety just as they do today. And for those who want to advance their careers, this legislation would create a clear pathway to becoming fully authorized ASPS police officers with the appropriate training, authority, and accountability under the Police Act. Over time, this will mean faster response times as we augment and support all police services, stronger coordination with police of jurisdiction, and more strategic deployment of police resources. The result is safer communities for Albertans and a greater confidence in public safety right across the province. As the ASPS continues to mature, it will also provide municipalities with more flexibility and more choice in how to meet their local policing needs, and also to ensure that sheriffs can continue doing their jobs effectively. We're also making targeted amendments to the Safer Communities and Neighborhoods Act. Our specialized sheriff units are already out there right now, shutting down problem properties, targeting fugitives that are avoiding accountability. And these amendments ensure that those teams don't miss a single beat. They're doing a fantastic job out there. They're going to continue to shut down crime where it lives seamlessly as part of the ASPS. This isn't about creating more government. It's about creating more safety. It's about faster response times, better coordination, and of course, putting more police officers on the streets to deter those who think that they can break the law with impunity. The legislation, if passed, reflects the advice and expertise of law enforcement leaders and the Alberta Sheriffs themselves. It cuts unnecessary red tape, provides stability for staff, and above all, strengthens public safety. It moves Alberta closer to a modern, coordinated, and community-focused police service, one that meets today's needs. And of course, there is always more work that needs to get done ahead of the SPS. Is going to continue to build its leadership team. It's going to develop training programs and recruit police officers. But today's legislation represents a very meaningful and practical step towards a safer, stronger Alberta. And with that, I will take questions. Thank you.
Yeah, this brings us to the question and answer portion of our announcement. Just get reporters in the room to please state your name and outlet. One question, one follow-up. We can go ahead with Janet. Go ahead, Janet.
Okay, how many Alberta Police Service members will receive additional training to perform police-like functions?
Yeah.
And what does this high-tier training entail?
So we've identified of the roughly 1,200 or so Alberta sheriffs, that approximately 600 of them have been ones that have been performing the police-like functions. So those would be your scan teams, your highway patrol teams, your surveillance teams, or fugitive apprehension teams. Just to, I think I named almost all of them. So those folks are already doing what we would call police-like functions. Now there are again, the team led by Chief Parhar are identifying those folks. So we do have people that, for example, are former EPS or CPS members, just as an example. Those people are already trained police officers. There are obviously a couple small qualifications that would need to be made, but that transition is relatively simple for them. There are people that have are very highly trained, that have worked in the Alberta Sheriffs, that are, for example, doing the highway patrol, which for those of you who do not know, is probably one of the most dangerous things that somebody could do as a police officer. It's known as an unknown threat, because you just don't know what you're getting yourself into on every traffic stop, quite frankly. And so those people are very highly skilled and highly trained. What we have determined, or what we're figuring out, I'm trying to reduce this, working with Chief Parhar, but we figure that there's about a gap of about 6 weeks worth of training that those folks would need to do in order to meet the necessary qualifications under the Police Act to become fully empowered police officers.
Did you have a follow-up?
Yeah, so the cost, we've been waiting to hear an overall cost for this transition. If you've got to repaint all the decals on the vans, if you've got to do 6 weeks of training with 600 members, I mean, that's not free. What's your ballpark?
Well, look, we have a budget that's going to be coming out here in the next couple of days. I can tell you, as I know you've attended almost all of these press conferences, we have the Alberta Sheriffs Branch that has a budget. That budget, which is what this bill is essentially doing right now, it lifts the people, it lifts the money that is within the Alberta Sheriff's Branch and moves it into the Crown Corporation that we built during the last session. Of course, people that are going to be doing police officer jobs, and this is no secret. I have said this to you, and I've said this to others before. Equal pay for equal work. I don't know why anyone would be opposed to that. And those people who will become police officers will be paid at the same level as a police officer. Sure, there's going to be an increase cost in that, and we have factored that in to those increases, but that is something that will be coming out in the upcoming budget.
You can go ahead, Sean.
Sean Amato with City News. So is Alberta fully committed to moving away from the RCMP now, or when does that decision have to be made?
Well, we are fully committed right now to augmenting and supporting, and that hasn't changed, all police services. You would have seen this only a couple of weeks ago in the city of Calgary, where the Calgary Police Service had an operation where they were dealing with social and civil disorder in downtown Calgary, and they utilized the Alberta Sheriffs. And the good news is that once we transition many of these folks into becoming police officers, here's a bit of the difference here, is that those police officers will be able to act without having their hands held by the local police of jurisdiction, if that makes any sense, right? So right now, you have peace officers that have to work with the police officers, and then when they become police officers, the sheriffs become police officers, they won't need, we'll call it a chaperone by a Calgary Edmonton police officer. Now, in regards to the other part of your question there, look, we're still continuing to evaluate what is the best option for the people of Alberta. I know that the federal government has, committed to some of the provinces who have been very clear that they want to maintain the contract services of the RCMP. However, what the federal government has not committed to is what that funding model is going to look like. And nobody has really been talking about that. And that's a very, very important question that has to be had. The RCMP still face the challenges when it comes to authorized strength levels. And I don't think we can ignore that. And this is not, again, something that is exclusive to the people of Alberta, BC, Saskatchewan, Manitoba, all the way in the down east as well. There are authorized strength levels. So this is just as simple as just, again, writing a check and crossing your fingers and hoping you're getting police officers here. What we are doing here, is, again, when we talk about augmenting and supporting police services, is this is the fastest path to get at least 600 or so police officers on the streets of Alberta trying to assist all police of jurisdiction in calls to service right now.
So when does that decision need to be made? Because you sort of alluded to it. I mean, you've got to train police officers, you got to get vehicles, you got to get detachments, you got to do all these things. So when are you or your predecessor, when is somebody going to stand up at a podium and say, yes, we are replacing the RCMP? Like, what does the deadline for that look like?
Well, what I need is that we're going to continue the conversations with the federal government. Again, I need to know what this is going to look like. I mean, right now, I have a laundry list of complaints from municipalities all throughout rural Alberta complaining about the increased costs. These are not costs that I'm imposing on them. These are costs strictly by the RCMP. And these are costs that for some of these really small jurisdictions, I'm talking like villages and very small counties, it's becoming unsustainable and unaffordable. So it's not about just committing to the RCMP at, quite frankly, a rate that is becoming unaffordable for folks in rural Alberta right now. I have to be able to say to them and provide them options. And that's precisely why that we have a number of municipalities, it's no secret, Coaldale and Hardisty have committed to a detachment of the Alberta Sheriffs. And then we are looking at signing other memorandums of understandings right now with many municipalities who are looking at this through a financial lens, saying that, we can't continue to maintain the current costs of our contract service provider. So I'm giving Albertans choice. I'm giving our municipalities choice. Right now, as far as the absolute commitment, I don't think that is something that we need to say right now until I can actually get a definitive answer from the federal government as to what their actually funding model is actually going to look like. Is this actually going to benefit Albertans, or is this going to be just more of a cost dump on the folks in rural Alberta who, quite frankly, just can't continue to afford this?
But I'm asking you for a date.
Sean,
I don't
Sean,
have
we
a
have
lot of words, but you didn't give me a date.
Sean, we have more questions in the room. You can go
But
ahead.
you didn't answer the question.
Emmanuel Christobet, Radio Canada. you talked about flexibility and choices for municipalities. Does it only come down to money, or is the ASPS going to police differently than the RCMP is?
Well, I think like policing is, I was a former police officer. I mean, policing is policing. I mean, there is a certain way you police in rural Alberta as you do into some of the downtown big cities, but the basic skill sets and the training is really identical, to be honest with you. As far as the small municipalities, again, we're leaving choice, which I think is very, very important. And for example, in the Coaldale, the costs are becoming so enormous. They have not been allowed to go back into the police service agreement, and so they pay 100% of the costs. And actually, I supplement some of the costs because they are not on a 70-30 split with the government of Canada. So we have to figure out what this is going to look like. Right now, certainly what I have heard, and mostly in rural Alberta right now, is look, when somebody calls 911, they just need somebody to attend the call right now. And I'm trying to make sure, and I've said this before, I don't care what the uniform is, I just want somebody to go to the call. And if I have somebody who has a stripe on their pants and a gun on their hip and is driving a police car and is the closest one to the scene, then go to the scene, as far as I'm concerned. But when you talk about police of jurisdiction, and I'll just use this as a hypothetical, I mean, if in a jurisdiction that is RCMP, police of jurisdiction, they can still be the primary on the call. That's not going to change, right? It's no different than what we see in other jurisdictions, quite frankly, all throughout North America. You can have multiple people in different uniforms attending a call to service. That doesn't mean it's chaos. Like I said, the skill set of police officers, and as long as they're communicating together, there's really no issue.
And do you think there's going to be some confusion in the public's mind? Because when you think about a police officer is a police officer. But a sheriff might be some kind of ASPS police officer, but also might not be doing the same duties. A sheriff will now be two things at the same time. Will there be some confusion?
Well, Chief Parhar is, obviously there's going to be a bit of a two-tier to this. You're going to have some folks that are going to be peace officers and some that are going to be police officers, but they won't be wearing the same uniform. That's clear. That has to change, and they have to be clearly identifiable. You cannot have somebody who looks like a police officer and, quite frankly, who's not a police officer. So your point is very well taken, and Chief Parhar is working on making sure that that those two duties will be distinguished, and people will know that one is going to be the police and one is going to be a peace officer. This is why Alberta Sheriffs Police Service, but you're likely going to see the word police somewhere on their uniform. Yeah.
We do have some reporters on the line with their hands up. Operator, can you put through the first caller, please?
Your first caller comes from the line of Catherine Gurkowski from All Alberta. Your line is now open.
Yeah, thanks for taking my question. So I'm still not clear, what funding level are you looking for from the federal government? Is it that 70-30 funding split? Is there another number you're looking at?
Well, we don't know, right? I mean, certainly my conversations that I've had with the federal government is when you have an organization that is on average, anywhere from 20 to 30% short on their authorized strength levels, and again, there are some provinces or federal, provincial, territorial meetings that have been very loud, as their authorized strength levels tend to hover around 30%. You have to ask yourself, as any good government would be doing, is what am I getting for my return on investment? And I don't know the answer to this. Is the government going to maintain the 70-30 split for the municipal police service agreement? Are they going to maintain the 90-10 split? Or is it going to be another number? And I think that the federal government is going to have to be clear as to what they are looking for, but whatever decision is going to be made needs to be made, at least here in Alberta, what is going to be the best interest for the people of Alberta.
Did you have a follow-up, Catherine?
Yeah, I guess I was looking for what you were looking for, but my follow-up, at the top you said, despite the crime severity index going down, crime has been more violent. When I look at the most recent numbers, it looks like the violent crime index has actually decreased more than the overall crime severity index. Could you clarify what you meant by that?
Sure. I mean, we only have, what occurred in, I think, Calgary last night, where there was, again, more gun violence. The extortion, the Bishmal gang, for which, I've essentially been one of the loudest voices in Canada on that particular issue. Look, the extortion, the burning down of homes, other violence that has occurred, that's a reality. That's an objective fact that is occurring right now. Right now we've invested a lot into Alberta Law Enforcement Response Team. I know that they have a coordinated plan. I've personally been in contact with Chief McClellan at the Calgary Police Service today, who has indicated that certainly what occurred last night in Calgary is an absolute top priority for her, and that she will be working with her executive team to coordinate a plan to go after this. So, it kind of goes back to. People would always ask me about, what are your metrics when it comes to LRT safety, as an example. And, you can cite a whole bunch of stats, and that's why, I cited, okay, great, the crime severity index is going down. But the reality is, whether you're on the train or whether you're in certain parts of Calgary or Edmonton or other areas of Alberta, if you don't feel safe, then we need to do better. And so, again, we're going to continue to work with all of our police agencies and the AACP to make sure that we have a coordinated effort as we continue to tackle violent crime, organized crime. I'm going to reiterate this again. I'm one of the leading voices on this. I'll be cautiously, we'll say, optimistic that there is a bail reform bill that is currently before Parliament. But I think between the Conservatives and Liberals, they need to pass this bill. And, we can't continue to have violent repeat criminal offenders that are being released into the streets and God knows what other violent crimes that are occurring.
I'd like to thank everybody for coming. This concludes our press conferences. I just want you to keep in mind that all materials are embargoed until the bill is presented in the House. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.